will ask that we all come together, and I call this meeting to order. Val, please call the roll.
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry? Commissioner Daniel?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Villa?
Here. At this time also, I'll ask you to silence your cell phones or any electronic devices that you may have. And Commissioner Danio is going to lead us on our invocation. Please stand and continue standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oprah Winfrey once said, "Be thankful for what you have, you'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never ever have enough." With Thanksgiving upon us, I thought I'd share some interesting facts. Did you know that as Americans, we will consume roughly 46 million turkeys this Thursday, followed by almost 50 million pumpkin pies? 8 in 10 Americans agree that the leftovers are better than the big meal itself. And the average turkey eaten on Thanksgiving is between 15 and 20 pounds, but the heaviest on record weighed 86 pounds. And if you're one of those Black Friday shoppers who get up at 3 a.m. and try to beat the rush, forget it. There are over 32 million ahead of you on Thanksgiving Day. But while we indulge on all that, we need to remember that there's a lot out there that aren't so fortunate. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for blessing our nation and all of us that are in it. God, we know that there are people out there, millions of people out there, that go to bed hungry at night. Help us never to lose sight of that. Be with us tonight at this meeting. Bless it and help us to make good decisions for the city. And in spite of all our busyness, God, and commitments, we just pray that we keep things in check through this holiday season. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item of business is to present the Positivity Award to Florida Healthcare. So,
You got to do Penny?
what's that?
Penny?
No. Nope. So this Positivity Award was created by Commissioner Penny, for those of you that don't know, when he was mayor, to recognize people that are promoting positivity in our city and helping us to move the city forward. And this month's choice was Commissioner Johnson's. And so, Mr. Johnson, would you like to say a few words about Florida Healthcare?
I would. I picked Florida Healthcare because they're doing so much for the city of Holly Hill. They're improving. They're actually, you might say, in the building, they're kind of busting out at the seams. They have in that small building, which is right directly across the street from the pizza place here, they have, I'd say, clear to almost 500 employees in the city of Holly Hill, which is probably the largest employee in Holly Hill. They're probably close to Metro, but I would imagine they're maybe a little bit larger on employees. But they came to Volusia County in 1974, so they've been here for like 45 years, and I think they're in 5 counties, I believe, in Florida. Is that correct, Missy? Yes. 5 counties in Florida. And what really impresses me so much is what they're doing with that old SunTrust Bank building and property up there. That's right on US 1. It's such a gigantic improvement in the CRA on US 1 that I'm amazed by it. And I decided to pick Florida Healthcare for the Positivity Award for this month. And we have Bissy here from the Florida Healthcare. And if she would like to say something, it would be greatly appreciated.
Come right here to the microphone. But just please do so we can get it on record, because we're recording. Thank you. Just state your name.
Bissy Holden, Florida Healthcare Plans. On behalf of Florida Healthcare Plans, I'd like to thank you for the recognition for this award. We're very excited about moving in our new sales and service center at the old SunTrust building. We're anticipating moving in March. We'll probably have between 80 and 100 people moving in. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Joe Forte and Nick Conti for helping us through the process and making it so easy. And we're thrilled to be in Holly Hill. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, if you could come forward, we're all going to come down and take a picture with you, all right?
And you can place the sign at either building which you prefer,
You get a sign. You can place it at either building.
whichever you prefer.
Hey, Bissy, do you want it on your phone?
Your preference.
Do you want it on your phone? Or do you want me to send it to you? Yeah, I can take it. So here you go. You can hold the sign, get right there in the middle.
Police chief's gonna take our photo.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. All right, terrific. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you. Oh, thank you.
Oh, here's the stake to it, too.
Yes, I've been doing that.
Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and recess the City Commission meeting and convene as the CRA. So on our CRA agenda, item number 1, 2019-R-72. Scott?
Resolution number 2019-R-72 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, authorizing a piggyback contract for the purchase of vehicles, equipment, and services using Charlotte County Vehicle Purchasing Contract, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for conflicts, providing for savings provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the commission for our staff? Seeing none, we'll open this up to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion needed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 2, Resolution 2019-R-82.
Resolution 2019-R-82 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City of Holly Hill Community Redevelopment Agency, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute an assignment agreement between the City of Holly Hill and Martens, Charities, Inc., establishing the terms of the agreement and providing severability and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? At this time, we'll open it up to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we will adjourn as the CRA and reconvene as the City Commission. Take it down to number 6, public comments. This is the audience's opportunity to address the commission about anything not on our regular agenda tonight. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak tonight? Yes, sir. You know the drill.
Jim Schultz, 117. Yeah, unfortunately, I do know the drill. Two amazing things came out this past couple weeks, at least in my issues of interest. A government agency, not the EPA, but assigned to research fluoride, actually came out and stated it was a probable neurotoxin. Not exactly new news because Harvard, Grand Gene has been doing a lot of studies for 15 years showing that it was a neurotoxin. And worldwide, it was known to be a neurotoxin, especially by countries that have huge problems with higher levels of fluoride than we ever put in the water, India and China. But also, the fifth recent study paid for with U.S. dollars on fluoride exposure to children having IQ decreases issues. Well, anyways, I'd mentioned the other 4, but this is the 5th one. This one blindsided me. I didn't know it was coming. But this wasn't on pregnant mothers exposing their fetuses to fluoride. This was babies fed formula, and still paid for by U.S. dollars, but actually the study was done in Canada, which also uses, they have about 38% of the country fluoridated. And they showed that 4 points IQ by having the young children bottle fed with fluoridated water. Not a positive, substantial, not as big as some of the Chinese studies with 7 IQ points, or the Mexican study that had the same levels of fluoride exposure to the kids, because you could tell by the urine excretion from the pregnant mamas, but just a different phase of the life. Instead of for the fetus, it's for the baby. And that's not new, actually, in a sense, because let's face it, the ADA, American Dental Association, and the CDC warned not to give babies fluoridated water in their formula. When was that? 2006. Why? Because it would damage their teeth or have a higher probability. Teeth or tooth damage is a big issue. I would have been more concerned about the neurotoxic or IQ drop. Hey, it's one thing if your kid doesn't have good appearance teeth. It's something else if your kid's not as bright. And, it's just, there was also another phase of this too. They showed a couple other things. That if a child had lead exposure, it made them 67%, in other words, higher lead exposure, more susceptible to, guess what? ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But also, the part that I'm almost in disbelief about is showed that actually 6.1 times higher in the cities that were fluoridated in Canada. That's off the chart. I'm confused by that. It just seems crazy high, and it seems like a red flag. But hey, if you guys got any questions, I'd be happy to try to. I'll make sure you get the copy of the studies, both of them. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about anything not on our regular agenda? Yep. Mr. Jim, got to say your full name for the record.
Slowly.
Good evening. I'm Jim Cameron, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, Daytona Regional Chamber, and I think I've got enough copies there. If not, I'll give one other. But just wanted to mention about our Volusia Days at the Capitol coming up. That's going to be January 15th and 16th. That's day 2 and 3 of the session. This session, they start a little bit early this year, so coming year. So, but we're going to have a number of meetings that we're going to have up there with different speakers. We're having a kickoff luncheon, and we're going to be having that at the Florida League of Cities boardroom. Worked out a plan with them. And then also wanted to mention, now if anybody comes up from cities, I have a meeting right after our kickoff luncheon. I got a 1:30 appointment with Mike Sittig or Allison or Scott Dudley, some of their folks up there to talk about city issues and such. So I do have that meeting already set. Then we've got meetings with other different House and Senate members. I'm working on that right now. And then we've got a dinner that evening at Andrews, and we got some other speakers there. And then we've got some more meetings with House and Senate members where we split up into issue teams. But all of the focus is going to be on concerned, like I say, back here to Volusia County, the county and our schools as well as our cities. Another big issue that we're also going to be looking at, talking about up there that we're keeping an eye on, and that's the new wage-based study that's being done right now by the Florida Office of Economic and Demographic Research. And this is a wage-based study as it relates to, if y'all have heard about it before, district cost differential, the education funding formula. That's going to be a major issue that we're going to be looking at up there. So we can, if anything, we want to make sure that we don't lose out less than 96 cents that we're getting now. We'd sure like to get $1, but we want to make sure we don't get bumped back more so. But again, we got other cabinet members like the CFO, Jimmy Petronas, and insurance commissioner we're going to be talking about. And then also I've got a meeting coming up that I wanted to commend Commissioner John Penny at last week's Volusia delegation meeting. And I was very proud to hear them. I mean, just that some of the items that are on y'all's list are on our chamber's list as well. Number one of which I think we very much on, and that's housing, workforce housing. And was glad to see the governor come out the other day officially and again call for full funding of the Sadowski Fund to be used for housing. So that's something that's hopefully we can get some more dollars into that, though, and get those dollars back here to Volusia County. And I'm looking at trying to get Trey Price, who is the executive director for Florida Housing Finance Corporation. I'm looking to get a meeting with him up there. Again, try to get some of those dollars from their office back here to Volusia County. But if anybody has any questions about this, I mean, please see me, but we'd sure like to have some of y'all with us up there.
Thank you, Jim. Before you go, I had a question. That time frame is right in the margin of error for my wife giving birth to my son. So when is the latest that I could RSVP? Like, I probably wouldn't know until the day before. Is that possible?
For you, we'll make now room arrangements, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That's going to
I
be
mean,
the tough part, but
No, I mean,
yeah.
But no, for you, and even then, I mean, I, if you have a little one, I mean, just have been, you know.
No. If
I'm
she
gonna have to
hasn't
give you a
given
pass
birth,
on this
she's
trip.
technically due February 2nd, but like I
Yeah,
said,
well-
within the margin of error, so.
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
John,
John, you're going this year, right?
I don't know if I'm going to go to Volusia Days.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank
Appreciate
y'all
it.
ever so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the commission about anything not on our regular agenda? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comments, and we'll move to approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. And any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now moving on to the consent agenda, items 1 through 6. The action proposed is stated for each item on the consent agenda. Unless the city commissioner removes an item from the consent agenda, no discussion on individual items will occur, and a single motion will approve all items. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any item on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Is there any commissioner that would like to remove an item on the consent agenda? All right, then I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Resolution, moving on to our regular agenda, Resolution 2019-R-85.
Resolution 2019-R-85, by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, expressing support for the ECHO grant application for Pictona at Hollyland Park, located at 1066 Ridgewood Avenue, Holly Hill, Florida 32117, and providing an effective date.
Joe, could you give us a quick overview?
Yeah, real quick, you're all aware that we are applying for an ECHO grant, $800,000 matching grant, 400 from ECHO and 400 from the project, of which most of that match money will come from the Martens in the development of the project. Due to the timing of the project and what's being constructed prior to the grant being approved, we have to come up with additional match money. And the easiest thing that we can do is use partial value of the land, $200,000 of the value of the land toward a match. So what does that mean for the city? What that means is that over the next 40 years, if you sell the property, you'd have to reimburse that $200,000. I don't think the city would ever sell
Right.
Hollyland Park, so I don't think there's any risk to the city by using that as part of the match for the grant project.
Great. Any questions for staff? All right, we'll open this up to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission on this item tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to our public hearing, Resolution 2019-R-86.
Resolution number 2019-R-86 by title only for first and only reading. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Volusia County, Florida, amending the final budget for the City of Holly Hill for the fiscal year 2018-2019 and providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mrs. Gurney?
Stella Gurney, Finance Director. This is part of the fiscal year that we've just closed. This is the cleanup period for the budget to do the final amendments to the budget. We have by state statute 60 days after the end of the year to do that. So you'll see different funds for different amounts, but I'll draw your attention to some of the bigger ones. The gas tax fund, if you'll recall, we originally were talking about doing a loan from the solid waste fund of $1 million to do additional paving, but we found money within the fund, so we did a less amount this year, and so we didn't take that loan from the solid waste fund. We are asking that that be redirected along with another $320,000 to the Hurricane Matthew Fund. If you'll recall, we talked about the Hurricane Matthew Fund actually being in a negative cash balance because we haven't got reimbursed from FEMA, and that it was actually commingling or coming out of the general fund. Since these were really solid waste expenditures out of that fund, this cleans that up and brings the cash balance back to, you know, a positive situation by doing this temporary loan, and then the money will be paid back to the solid waste fund as we get it in from FEMA. And that 1.3 still is pending, still with FEMA, not at the state level, but it still is pending and going through the process. And then the CRA fund, we actually had it budgeted in the projects fund, the 139 fund, but the budget was not really balanced. I didn't say that correctly. Between the two funds, it wasn't balanced. The projects funds had the money coming in. The CRA fund didn't show the money going out. So this is cleaning that up and making sure that we have the reservations for the pickleball project within that projects fund. The other amounts are smaller for revenue shortfalls and some of the water impact, sewer impact, stormwater capital. The stormwater reserve fund had a budget of fund balance, which that fund really didn't require it. There was only 160-some thousand in that fund. So that budget was a mismatch, and it really belonged up in the stormwater fund, which it was already there. We already talked about the solid waste fund, and then the last two funds are the insurance funds, the internal service funds that were created last year that weren't really necessary. So we said we were going to eliminate those funds because it would eliminate accounting entries that we have to do. So those last two are just cleanup of those budgets and reducing those down.
Great, thank you. And before you go, when I was reading through the packet with the overview of the revenue and the expenses, Joe and I briefly spoke about this. in the future, could we have it broken out just revenues and then separately just expenses? Because the commingling got a little confusing as I went down. Just a thought for,
Sure, I followed the example from last year.
Right.
The other budget resolutions actually do that. They have
Right.
revenue and expenses and then variance.
Right,
But
right.
sure, I can change it
just
to be
on the
that way.
overview at the top.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Is there any other questions for staff? Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we'll open this up to public participation. Mr. Legary? You know the drill, too.
Jim Legary, 342 Burley. I had a question about, I think the last item on the, is salaries or salaries and benefits.
The last item, is that salaries and benefits, Stella?
Those were the internal service funds where the insurance was being paid out of, the different insurance, health insurance, liability insurance, all those things. They were being charged to the different funds that they belonged to. The money was being moved over to these two internal service funds, and then they were being paid out of these internal service funds. You don't need to do that. You can put it in a liability in the general fund and run everything through that. So we were getting rid of a lot of accounting entries. Does that help you? Probably not.
So that's just the insurance and benefits, the
It's-
figure that you have there?
They're both insurance related, either liability insurance or health, life, those type things.
Is there another category for just salaries?
Those are within each one of the other funds.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Thank you, Jim. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this item tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now moving on to communications, Mr. Forte.
Just two items. One I'll mention, we issued a notice to proceed for design for a water line that's on Birmingham Avenue going up toward Kansas. This is a line that had a leak in it. The crews had gone out to try to make several patches. Each time they tried to patch the line would continuously break. So that line needs to be repaired. So we issued a notice to proceed to meet Hunt for the design, and that will come to construction hopefully soon. That's a bit of an emergency for that project. The other is a quick update on the boat launch. The boat launch has been through substantial completion. We suspect that should be open for boats to actually launch out of there by Christmas time. And then sometime in the spring, we'll think about doing some kind of a launch celebration, a grand opening of that boat launch. I suspect that launch is going to become quite popular due to its location and size and availability for the size boats that'll be able to launch out of there and the number of boat trailer parking spaces that'll be in the lot. And then finally, we had an update on pickleball, and that is moving forward. They should be pouring concrete tomorrow. At 4:30 in the morning, they'll start pouring concrete for the first load. There'll be I didn't write it on this one. There's a lot of concrete that's going to be poured out there. So that's absolutely moving forward pretty good. They're slightly ahead of schedule. I wouldn't get too excited about that because that schedule is going to fluctuate as they move forward. Other than that, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Forte. Mr. Simpson?
I just wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Yeah. Mrs. Manning, would you like to say something? Maybe about the parade? Remind us. Yeah? Okay. Mr. Gutakis? All right. All right. First off, thank you to Mr. Gutakis. Recently, I did an interview with Channel 2 News. They're doing a feature story about cyber and ransomware, and so they wanted a small cities point of view on that, and I talked about how we formed the Congressional Mayor's Council of Congressional District 6, and with Congressman Waltz, he's working on that as a national priority in Washington now, and so that'll be coming out sometime in December. But thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge. We got a good guy protecting us, even though he can't sleep too good at night because of all the threats out there. So thank you, Scott. I'll go ahead and remind everybody about the Christmas parade coming up. We have a tree lighting ceremony December 6th on Friday. And then the next day, our iconic Christmas parade, which starts at 10 a.m. And that leads me to one of my points tonight, or something I wanted to bring up to this commission. So we have the Light Up Holly Hill. And Joe and I briefly spoke about this today. So we need to really start promoting it more to our businesses. The idea behind it is, as you all know, to light up as many businesses as we can along US 1, so that way people from all around bring their family to come down our US 1 corridor, and it's exposure for our businesses. We spread Christmas cheer and all of that. Now, I spoke to Joe today, and I wanted to bring it up to you all to see if you liked the idea, and I think the chamber had discussed this previously. I think we need to somehow come up with a prize for the most lit up place, most holiday spirit.
Might as well just give it to the Twilight.
Well, but so the Twilight, though, what I think is we have an award, and it can be chosen by the whole commission, and then we give that award to them with a presentation. But the Twilight is in a league of its own, so they get their own different recognition, kind of like they did last year. But that way it's fair, so it gives some of these businesses a chance, because nobody's going to top the Twilight, period. I wish there could be. But I think that would go a long way to promote it, create a little challenge between businesses. And, I don't know if maybe all of us should go in our, you in District 1, you in District 4, you in District 3, walk the businesses and go in and say, hey, how you doing? I'm your commissioner. We're doing this Light Up Holly Hill. The number one winner gets blah, 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 and recognition from the city. I think it would be pretty cool. You had something?
Yeah, why don't we just let it be the mayor's challenge, and you pick, instead of it being an award by committee. We're never going to, it's going to take us 2 months and 3 workshops to figure out who's a win. Why don't we just give you the authority to pick who you think, because what I've found in judging these Christmas light ceremonies, you make one person really happy,
Yeah.
and everybody else really mad.
Yeah.
So it's falling you.
It's going to be the mayor's fault.
We could do that. We could do a mayor's award.
But I mean, I just think, if you
We got
want
enough
to,
time for this year, though?
I don't know.
I think so. I mean, I could start walking next, the week after Thanksgiving. I think,
I just don't know what you're going to give them.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you have to offer to give them?
Maybe we could talk to some of the businesses, see if someone wants to donate something. I don't know.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Couple free pizzas, man. You can do it.
I got no problem with that, but I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
I think your idea has great merit, Mr. Mayor, but I think we might be trying to rush it out a little too quickly. And here's what I would do, is that let's walk the businesses. Let's see who does it this year, and let's see what we can grow. And then over the next 12 months, let's contact all the businesses. And maybe Robin Hanger gives a free oil change, and
Right.
maybe John gives us free small pizza. And, maybe get a new bicycle tire or an ice cream cone at McDonald's. And then you have a package, and then it's like, hey, this is a presentation from all the Holly Hill businesses, and you win. The mayor's choice is you.
It'd be cool to have a people's choice, too. We could have.
But I just don't know. Here's my only concern, is that these are great ideas, but we don't have any staff to facilitate all this stuff.
Right. No.
We can't throw it on Val, because she'll have a nervous breakdown.
Right. No, and this would be on staff, but I think, man, when you think of DeLand, the most patriotic city in America is, their little tagline, and man, we're Holly Hill. We have Merry Christmas up on our city hall year round. We should be the most, holiday spirit city.
Just claim it.
We need to. I don't know, I got to think of a way to say that.
Famous beach. Just claim it.
Right. So, anyways, what do you guys think?
I'm concerned about the timing and all that too. I think, it's a good idea to start. I'm just not sure if it's doable and.
It takes a lot of time to set up. I mean, Twilight's been doing this for years, and they have all the plugs. I'm thinking about where am I going to put plugs at my office, and
Are you doing it this year?
we are, but it won't be as big as it will be next year because I got to get an electrician down there to put outside plugs.
Oh,
So
Your premium's going up? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
no, but it's just one of those things. I think. I applaud your enthusiasm, but I just worry that we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves.
I hear you. Joe, are they allowed to put lights on their signs?
Sure.
We're going to allow them to do that?
They gotta have electric in them.
Just
You talking
to-
about like in marquees like mine?
Yeah, like you could put the
Some of them
lights all
got-
over
Some of them
the,
have electrical outlets in them,
Yeah,
otherwise
yeah.
it'd be running extension cords all over.
right, right. Well, so, I mean, maybe what we do is, I think we need to go door to door to promote this, like ASAP. And if they could put up some lights, that's great. And then we can grow it, we can think more towards the future next year.
You know what?
Um,
Can I interrupt?
yeah, go ahead.
All I'm saying is, if you start it and it rock and rolls and you see something and this and that, you can always put together a mayor's choice.
That's what I was going to say,
and
yeah.
throws
I guess it doesn't have to
prize
be
on.
that official. I mean, I could just
No,
throw it
just
together
somebody really
if it's
excels
going
over
on.
the
The
next
mayor's
2
choice
months.
ribbon.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
yeah.
it's not a
Leg
prize,
lamp
maybe
or
it's some
something,
recognition and,
Right.
and it grow.
And we'll bring
it's
it.
a pilot year.
We'll bring them in here in front of the whole commission and do that thing,
Yeah.
So unless there's an objection to that, I mean,
Give them the positivity award in January.
there we go.
That's the next subject to talk about.
All right, so moving on from that, I have a few other things. I finished my emo training, all 4 levels of it, the double advanced training, and I tell you, it was awesome. For any of you that haven't gone to it, it really is. It's really beneficial. You learn a lot about yourself, your leadership techniques, and it's pretty good. So the Positivity Award, I wanted to bring up the Positivity Award and see if this commission wants to, and Penny Curry at our next meeting can weigh on this. I'm sure she's listening. But I feel that maybe we need to slow off on it a little bit, still have it, and use it on demand when someone does something really big for our community, or we want to make sure we recognize someone. There's still a lot of value to it, but we have done this for now, I think, 2 years, full years now, coming up on the second
Yeah.
full year.
Yeah.
And we've recognized a lot of people, and those people are still working very positively in our community. And there are people to recognize, but I know it's gotten a little different since we began. So
I was going to say something about it too. I kind of feel
Okay.
the same way. Like we're kind of stretching. Like next month I have December, and I was kind of maybe going to suggest that we kind of close the year out. And I was thinking kind of the same thing, that we do it as needed, or as somebody does something great in the middle of March, we bring them up and we recognize them for a positive. Doesn't have to be month to month.
right. And so if any commissioner sees something that needs to be recognized, just get with Val, say, hey, I want to get this on the agenda.
Well, I think we can't talk about it
No.
before the meeting, so
Right.
I think maybe we bring it up at our comments. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
If you see someone doing something spectacular and they're not wanting to be let's recognize them. But if I thought of someone, I'd bring it up now, and we could recognize them next month if you guys
Oh,
agreed to that.
okay.
Because we can't I don't want to ask Val to put it on the agenda and we talk about it, and you 4 don't like that person, and I do like that person, and so.
But then again, though, that's how it works now. I mean, I don't know who you're picking. He doesn't know who you're picking. So, and if someone goes out and saves a cat from a tree or something, like,
Okay, all right,
we
okay.
should just, so
you might have
With
2 in
Joe.
1 month then. So I might
might,
find someone,
yeah.
Commissioner Daniel might find someone.
you
that
may.
month.
You
Okay,
may.
I think that's a good idea.
And maybe just give it to Joe, and Joe will decide who can go that month, or we'll do 2 that evening.
Okay.
Whatever, however that works
I
out.
think that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be more effective, I think.
Yeah.
Than struggling some months, because some months you're having a hard time. Maybe.
Sometimes it gets too predictable. It's
Yeah.
like you want it to be special, and if you do it every month, it's Christmas is once a year. So
Right.
if you did it every month.
Kind of loses its flavor.
Kind of loses it. Yeah.
That's what my dad used to say. It loses its flavor.
Right. All right, so without any objection, move forward with that.
Next month, next month, we probably won't have a second meeting next month.
No,
Right.
but I've got somebody
So
for
he'll
the
do it
first
the
and only
first,
meeting.
yeah,
We're doing a first meeting?
Yeah, and then we'll just kind of finish out the year.
yep,
That's why I traded with you, because my recipient wasn't in the town this week.
yep. And then the other thing is at the elected officials roundtable meeting that Mr. Forte and I attended about a week ago, we talked about, you probably saw on paper, the possibility of the sales tax coming back. There was some audience members, the meeting before, that mentioned bringing up a whole cent tax that I had talked to you guys about. That was shot down. But it's still floating in the air to talk about a half-cent sales tax for infrastructure. There was a little bit of debate. There were some mayors that seemed more against it this time, and then there was mayors and the chairman who were very much for it. So I didn't have a comment. I wanted to hear all the comments, hear what my commission thought on it, and then see, also what the people think of it as well. My problem is that we just asked the voters for this, and it failed pretty largely. And so I feel, I'm always in support of asking the voters how they feel. I always support, letting the voters speak. But at the same time, I have a little heartburn just putting this back out to the voters. So I didn't know how you guys felt on it, or if you had an opinion on it. So if you do, please tell me now. That way I'm not representing the commission and say something that I should step on my foot.
When I read that article too, they focused on the lack of trust. And that was the key issue, is the lack of trust. Has the county earned the trust in the last, whatever it's been? I don't know about that,
Yeah, good point.
I mean, obviously, the special election didn't bring out probably the same attendance that a real election would, so that could change the dynamics of it. But if we do it and we fail, I don't think they're ever going to have a chance. That's the problem.
Right.
We need the money, but I don't know if it's timing, just like last time.
Right, the need is there, but I don't think that the votes are there. Yeah.
I just don't think unless we have people coming to this commission asking us to put it back on, I don't think it's we asked and we were told.
Great point, yeah.
So I haven't had one person come to the microphone and ask us to put it back on.
Great point.
I haven't had one person
Neither have I, yeah.
ever come back and say, you should put that back on the ballot.
You're right.
So I don't think we should put it back on the ballot, and I think that we were told no.
You're right, yeah. Mr. Johnson, do you have a?
I didn't think we should have put it on the ballot last time.
Right.
None of us did.
I was right there with you.
I was almost sure it wasn't going to pass. But the first thing I would do if I had a question about something like that, I would ask someone like this guy sitting there with his phone in his hand over there, what he thinks of that, because he is pretty well informed about what goes on around his community. In the Daytona Beach area Chamber of Commerce, what do you think about it, Jim Cameron?
It's jam.
Yeah, come on.
Our position on that, I mean, I can't speak specifically to sales tax per se, but I did mention this at that same elected officials roundtable meeting, though, and our position currently is now, yes, we do need to pursue revenue measures in some form or capacity sometime in the future. I mean, but it does need to go for infrastructure. So like what you were just saying then, John, as far the money is needed, we agree, but we're not saying specifically half cent, full cent, or whatever, but we do need to pursue revenue measures sometime in the future to
Yeah, but,
apply for it.
I just
Is
don't
this
think
the
the
time?
near future. I don't think 10 months from now
yeah,
is the time to
I
do
mean,
it.
what's their position on the timing?
We, like I said, that's why they took the position. We ain't, we're not going that specific as for, right now.
They're building a fence and
Now, there was a, the idea that, that meeting that was brought up the other day, that elected officials roundtable committee, I think a lot of that's going to have to be, they're going to have to do a lot of thinking on that. But then again, you saw where the News Journal came out on Sunday.
Right.
And let me say this, I might add, at the same time, there is, I understand, another revenue measure that's going to be coming up on that same ballot to renew Volusia Forever, like the Florida Forever, but that
Echo may come back too.
that as well. So
Yeah,
wait a
good
minute,
point.
you're going
Good point.
to you're going to have what, 2 or 3 measures on there at the same ballot?
Right, right, right.
Remains to be seen.
If you had to say, put it on the ballot this next 2020 election, or don't put it on the ballot, which way would you go personally?
You're on the spot.
No, Roy.
Let me consult my board.
I mean, no, I can't say, anything beyond what my office has allowed me to say, though. I mean, and that is look at revenue measures in the future.
He still needs a job. Thank you, Jim.
I mean, but then again,
we
like I
really-
said, keep in mind
Really,
those other,
really need it, but. the
like you
main
said,
thing
those other revenue measures are going to be coming up for renewal this next go-around.
That's a good
There
point.
was a speaker, I believe, at that same elected officials roundtable, that gentleman in the back there, about environmental concerns. He said, that is coming up for renewal next election.
Thank you, Jim.
They really need it, but I think really, from what I hear from everyone, the only issue is that the people or the voters, or whatever you want to actually present them as, doesn't trust the people that are collecting this revenue on Volusia County to do the right thing with it. That's the whole thing. I mean, I think the people are for it, to do it and do what's right with it, all the voters, but they just don't trust the people that handling it. They go back and forth and they don't understand. You know what I mean? So I think that's the only problem. So really, it's a toss-up. You might put it on there and there'll be a lot more people voting, and it might pass. I mean, it depends on whether you want to take a gambling chance or not.
Right, right.
What would you say?
Well, I'm here in my commission, and we're not jumping up and down for it. I think an important point was I don't have anybody calling me asking me to put this back on the ballot. That's pretty important. But there is a need, definite need. And it's going to be tough, but we tightened our belts here in the city and got a lot of the job done, and we're going to continue to do so year after year. Other cities might not be so fortunate, but and I'm thinking about Penny Curry, who, when we took the vote, she was very much against it. I'm sure you're listening, Penny, so at the next meeting you can let me know how you feel, but her and I voted against funding the first ballot. So I think I probably know where she is. So thank you for that input, Commission, and yes.
Are you taking away an absolute no to this decision, or are you taking away no to a 2020 referendum, no to a 2022 referendum?
I'm taking away no to a 2020 is what I'm kind of hearing, unless something changes.
But then do you support a referendum in 2022?
Are we? I don't know if that question's going to be asked yet.
Some people brought it up that going to 2020 is too soon. Maybe you
Good
should
point.
put it off to
They
2022.
did bring it up.
So
Yeah.
I want to make sure you have enough information that, should this come up at a discussion, that you feel that this commission's position is no for a 2020 referendum.
Right.
Are you open to them?
Does anyone want to weigh in on that? That's a long ways away in election terms.
There's definitely a need. I think we all agree, and I think any citizen that you speak to will agree there's a need. I'm open to discussing in the future. I'm just not open to putting on the ballot 12 months after you were just told no so loudly. If it was, 52-48, you might have a different,
Right.
just a few votes different, maybe ask again, because there might be more voters, but it was pretty clear.
Right.
No, I agree. It's, this next election, I would stay away from it, but in
You
a couple
concur
years
with
down the
that?
road, that's a whole different story.
Do you concur with that, Commissioner Johnson?
I think it's probably too soon to come back with it again. It's hard to say. The only issue that I have is the people want to do it, they want to do the infrastructure, they want to do better on the transportation, me included with the transportation, but they just don't trust the people that are gonna handle the funds that are coming in, is what seems like the whole problem is.
Well, there's a countywide election
We
next
don't
year.
believe
Yeah,
what
but
they say.
2 years
is
down the road, things could change. County could, I mean.
We don't believe what they say is what you get from the people. We don't believe
Yeah.
the people that are doing it.
I don't think we should rule out anything for 2 years down the
So
road.
it's probably-
Yeah.
probably-
So I'm hearing
probably a
direction
good
that it's
idea to wait on it. I would
that
think it's another couple of
at the
years.
bare minimum to at least wait till 2020.
There'll be a few more people
2022.
voting.
2022, I'm sorry. All right, thank you for that direction, Commission. The last thing I have, many of you have seen about the Daytona Tortugas. Unfortunately, MLB, the Major League Baseball Association, has come together and striking out a lot of different minor league teams. I've been particularly interested in this, not only because I love baseball, because I go to the Tortugas over and over. I grew up going to those games. I know all of us have great memories there. Even though it's not in Holly Hill, I look at this as a really a greater Daytona Beach area, meaning including us. It's going to really impact, I think, the entire area. I really do. Not only economically, but family-friendly event that's affordable to take your family to. I love taking my girls there. I mean, a lot of people in our city do. There's really no downside to it. The county council discussed at their last meeting to support a resolution of support written to Major League Baseball, and they're going to be asking the cities to also support that resolution, just a simple resolution saying we support keeping Daytona Tortugas, especially because of the historic value. It was the place where the first African American, Jackie Robinson, played baseball, and so that was a major groundbreaking moment. And for them to be able to cut 42 teams, and his number was 42, the number he made iconic, is not only ironic, but it's actually sickening. So the good news is that the Tortugas in the whole state of Florida in the minor leagues is second in attendance. The problem is the politics of it and the fact that we're one of the most northern teams, along with the Orlando Red Frogs. I think it's Red Frogs. Fire Frogs, thank you. So, they're up here with us, and they're going through a lot of troubling economic things right now and with management. And so that's why they're getting them out of there. And then if they get them out of there, then all the rest of the teams are so far south that now we're kind of the odd duck. And but I just think that if any club has potential to stay, it'd be the Daytona Tortugas. And I think that if we had a huge major effort of all the Volusia County citizens or cities come together with a supportive resolution to support the county council to support this, it'd be important. I think it would be important for our whole area, including our city. And so just wanted to get y'all's opinion on that. Yes, Mr. Daniel.
I have pretty good authority that if Brown and Brown do what Brown and Brown is capable of doing, the Tortugas will not be eliminated from the league.
What do you mean?
I think Brown and Brown is going to be the key.
Oh, you mean lobbying the MLB?
Yeah. Those guys they're already in works. Oh, your brother ought to know.
Cannot confirm or deny, sir.
Yeah. I've talked to some of the big guns at Brown and Brown. They spent $15 million on that stadium. They're not going to let the Tortugas.
Right.
So
Well, and that's why we need to-
Yeah, they're bringing
need
a
to
Major
put
League
all the-
Baseball team to Orlando.
And we need to put all the pressure on. That's not going to happen. But
Talking about it.
I know, but we need to put the pressure on. And so if at next meeting we could have a resolution from the county council, if we could support that, that's what I'm looking for.
I
support
support
for that. Thank you, Mr. Penny. You support it?
Support keeping the Tortugas here, of course.
Yes, sir. All right.
I'm a baseball fan, you might think.
Yes, yep.
His grandson will be on the Tortugas someday.
All right, so that's all I have tonight. Sorry it was lengthy, but this is the only time we get to work these things out. So with that, we will move on to Commissioner Danio, you're
All right.
first tonight.
I had a couple of things. We talked about the Positivity Award, the Christmas lighting. The launch, the boat ramp, looking forward to that. And I guess the only thing that we didn't cover was the fact that our tailor was all on the same page. We're all wearing light blue shirts. That worked out pretty well. No, other than that, everybody have a good Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Johnson?
About the only thing I have is people question me about why we're not, moving forward with so many things. Why did we stall on the underground US 1? Why can't we move out ahead a little bit? Is there something's really holding up to get started, or what, Joe? Is it?
Yes.
They're waiting for a hydraulics mechanic to fix some things.
It's multifaceted. What we have, I probably should have given you an update on this as well. We hit a stalling point when Hurricane Dorian came through because all the crews from FPL mobilized. So where we are right now is we're waiting for Spectrum to come in and put their conduit lines in the ground. They can't put their lines in the ground because they can't get locates on where the FPL and AT&T lines are in the ground, because when they installed those conduits, there's no trace wire. There's nothing for them to locate. So the city's not going to take the risk of them putting their pipe in the ground, and FPL is not going to take the risk of them putting the pipe in the ground without damaging the existing pipe. So the next step is to pull the wire. So they're not going to pull trace wire, because the effort to pull trace wire, they might as well just pull the wire that's needed. So FPL is not going to pull the wire through the conduit until they sign off on the project as it is. So there are 12 spots. We walked the entire project about 2 weeks ago, and there's 12 spots that need some corrections. Some of them are as simple as just identifying or providing FPL with the easements that we already have in place. And some are situations where the location of the box, whether it's a transformer or a control box, may have to be turned because it's outside of the easement that we have, or in a couple of cases, in 2 cases, we actually have to extend the easement because we can't turn the box, because there might have been a water line or a sewer line in the way. So the contractor, to keep moving forward, put the pad a little bit further out of the easement. So now we're not in the easement. So we've got to go back and get that surveyed and get those property owners to sign off on a new easement. In 2 cases, there's a tree that's in the way of the 8-foot distance where a worker needs to get access to the panel on the box. So we have to come to an agreement with those property owners to remove the tree or replace a tree, or in one case it was to either remove a tree or eliminate a parking space. We have I have one property that's in the city where we don't have an easement yet because the property owner is being resistant to everything that we're trying to do. So there's some of these are resolvable, and some of them are a little bit more difficult to get resolution. But until we get them, FPL won't pull the wire. So based on the tasks that both the city staff, FPL, and our consulting engineers are tackling each one of these different problems, we suspect that we should have pretty much everything back in order somewhere in January. So once we get that done, then it's going to take FPL 2 months lead time to go ahead and pull the wire. Once FPL pulls the wire, then Spectrum can come in and start to put the conduit in for their cabling. So that's kind of where we're at, and it's taken far longer than we ever thought it would. It's more expensive than we thought it would. But there's about a dozen of these conflicts. I'll give you another example is where they're locating 2 of the control boxes on Walker Street inside of the fence where Florida Healthcare is located. There's a grass area amongst the parking spaces, and it's a good spot, and they gave us permission to be there. Now we just have to survey it, identify it, and get them to sign an easement. So all these things are happening at the same time to try to get them all resolved. But really what happened a couple of weeks ago is we had a meeting. We were meeting every other week on a Thursday to do updates on this. When Hurricane Dorian came in, like I said, the FPL crews and everybody dispersed, and then we came back to have a meeting, and I showed up at the meeting, and nobody showed up. So I contacted Linda, who took Larry Volnick's place, and I expressed my concern that I felt we've been abandoned. And she and Tony Tucci were able to kind of prod people along, and we got people back to the table. So another thing that happened in that Hurricane Dorian time period between then and now was John Lear, who is the guy that he handles all of the underground projects in the state. John technically retired, but then came back as a consultant. Well, in the time period from when he retired to coming back as a consultant, they didn't give him access to any of his files because he's no longer an FPL employee, he's a consultant. So they assigned someone else to the project who was only temporary and didn't have access to the files. So John actually did the walkthrough with us 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now we have a young lady named Chandra who is going to replace John after the first of the year, because that's when John retires, then probably will move on, but he's kind of indicated that he may actually stick around a little bit longer. So we've had a number of these things that have come up, everything from the hurricane to John retiring to John coming back to finding out that there's about a dozen conflicts that need to be resolved. That's delayed this from moving forward. So I had to remind them that in order for us to maintain our discount that we're getting on the entire project, we have to start the second phase of this within 3 years of the completion of the first phase. This is being funded out of the CRA monies, and the CRA comes to an end in 2026. So if they don't finish this project by 2023, that's like really far outside the window, we'll never get time to start the next project, let alone complete it within this time period that the CRA is in existence.
And let me say real quick, Commissioner Johnson, if I could have the floor, I have to applaud our city manager because I was able to sit in on that meeting, and he turned up the heat on them when, to the top people, as you know, Linda, and so I applaud his efforts for that. He put some pressure on to really actually make them listen to us, and lo and behold, the next week you guys had a walkthrough. So,
I do what I can. I know that you don't always see what's happening out of my office, but we're trying to stay on top of it, and there's just so much that we can do that's within or outside of our control.
I just wanted to applaud you for that. Go ahead, you can have the floor back.
They're giving you a 25% discount on it?
I don't remember the percentage discount, but yeah, we get that discount only if we complete phase 2.
Well, I thought they usually give a 25% discount if you do a 3-mile stretch. Are you still doing a 3-mile?
That's it. They call it line miles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we have to complete the 3 line mile stretch in order to get that discount. Now, they've given us the discount value on phase 1. If we don't complete it all in phase 2,
You lose the 25.
We got to
we
pay
have to pay it back. We
That's bad.
have to pay it
So
back.
You have to do that they used to always have a 3-mile, 25% off.
That's right. It's 3 line miles that we have to do. And that's why in this first phase, it was supposed to stop at LPGA, but we actually went up through Walker Street. We stopped just before Commissioner Danio's restaurant, just before Sea Spray, or it's now Florida Healthcare, and we stopped at Florida Healthcare on the west side. So we extended phase 1 a little bit further because we were able to do it. That's where the termination points made most sense. Now, the north end of the city, I believe, will be a little bit easier because if you look, there's not as many overhead lines. A lot of the lines at the north end of the city are actually on the east side of the road. They're between the property lines, the east properties. So if you look, there's not as many overhead lines and there's not as many conflict areas as there are on the south end of the city. But thanks for knowing so much about it, FPL guy.
I've been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah, I know. I should have called you for help.
But they're going to feed a lot of it out of the Holly Hill sub on Walker Street.
Yep. Well, you got a large trunk line that comes down LPGA, and you got the large line that comes up out of the
No, the
substation.
other question is, are you having any issues with AT&T on it?
Not at this point. AT&T is up to speed of where they need to be. Like I said, what we're waiting on is for Spectrum to get their conduit in, and they can't do it until FPL pulls the wire, and FPL won't pull the wire until they get the sign-off on all the projects. And here's another issue that we're going to have, and this is going to be a debate that we're going to have between the city and our consulting engineers and the FPL design team is that the DOT won't let the entire road go dark. So in order to do that, you have to be able to keep half the road illuminated at some time or another. So originally the thought is it's almost impossible to do, but the reality of it, it's still going to be hard. And the way you have to think about it is the supply comes from the west side. And then it goes to the east side of the road, and then overhead, the east side of the road supplies the west side of the road. So you can shut the west side of the road down, the east side still has power to illuminate. But when you shut the east side of the road down, then it shuts the west side of the road down. So one of the options that we're looking at is doing the west side of the road first, and then somehow backing power into it either through temporary supply or generators. But that's all still got to be negotiated because they haven't figured out how to do that yet. I don't know if maybe they could leave a line underground on the west side and separate the east side from the west side. So that's going to be the next challenge.
Big extension cord.
Sounds like putting up your Christmas lights. Gotta think about it.
Definitely don't want to get sideways with the DOT.
No, and that's got a lot to do with it. You know, when you're coordinating, we have 6 utilities we're dealing with: FPL, FPL, Spectrum, AT&T. It's called Level 3, and then there's another smaller providers that are in that system somewhere. And then on top of that, now you've got the DOT. It's their road. It's a state road. It's not a city road. If it was a city road, it'd be a whole lot easier. But it's a state road, so we have to deal with the state as well.
Yeah, the only other issue I have is we have to think, whether it's from an engineering point of view or a planning point of view or whatever, we have to think outside the box on LPGA. We don't have any choice. I've thought about it and thought about it and thought it's got to be eventually 4-lane.
I think I did talk to the mayor about that, and I think in the absence of Commissioner Curry, who has certain feelings on this, we would have this discussion at the next meeting as to what we'll do with that with LPGA. There's no rush, so you know, whether we have a work session scheduled, which I did send an email off to Lois, but I haven't gotten anything back, or maybe a meeting with Kakwan, who was the engineer that came in and did the presentation on the transportation here a couple of months ago. But I think it's up to you guys, but I think it's fair if we wait for Commissioner Curry to return before we dive into that.
We're
You know,
30
one of the
minutes down the road
things-
anyways.
One of the things that I mentioned to the mayor is, you know, we've gone down this route a couple of times. We went from 4-laning to some commissioners not wanting to split the city with a 4-lane road, commissioners saying they only want to do it if you can cover the canal. That coming off the table to going to a 3-lane system, then to a turning lane, and now there may be consideration for going back to a 4-lane. How do I get this to stick? How do I get the next commission sitting here not to overturn what this commission wants to do? And one of the things I mentioned is, well, maybe we put it on a referendum ourselves and let the voters of this city decide what we do with that road. And then once it's on a referendum, now they're not going to decide the funding, but they'll decide what position we should take to then go seek the funding. But it's difficult that we're kind of going full circle again, and every time we do that, we lose our place in line no matter what we decide.
And it's not our road.
It's a county road.
So do we have sole decision-making on that, or do they
No.
approve?
No,
County
they
has to
approve
approve
it. They approve the funding. So
Yep. I mean, we've paid for we paid for the study.
We blew it right after the turn of the century, huh?
In 2000, the plans were in place in 2000. They were taken off because I pulled the minutes on it. Plans were in place in 2000 to do 4-laning. It came back again in 2005, 2006, where the commission made a decision that if they weren't going to cover the canal, then they didn't want 4-laning. They'll go the direction of 3-laning. So we went from 4-laning back in the, and that's when I said in 2000, if I remember correctly, that's when we were slotted for construction around 2018. And then,
Long time before
The
PGA turned into a New York City street, all right?
Mr. Forte, you mentioned we should wait for Mrs. Curry, but you did just say a lot, and our conversation, yeah, you did. So I'm going to say something. Penny's going to listen if she's not. Hello,
Yeah.
Penny. I'm sure she's listening live right now. And she'll have a lot to say about this at the next meeting. But with all due respect, everything about this project has changed. This is not
Everything.
This is not the LPGA in 2000
Demographics
or
have
any
changed,
time
the economy
before,
has changed.
even 2010. I mean, the explosion on LPGA, the explosion of houses and businesses, and now with 4-laning come all the way through, I'm 100% with you, Commissioner Johnson. I think it's so vital to our city and our health of our future. And I don't care if it's a 30-year plan or a 3-year plan, but I think that it needs to be something that this commission is thinking down the road, because we are going to starve our US 1 corridor with the thousands of houses coming down 4 lanes, getting to Nova, and then splitting right off around our city. And so, with all due respect, with the project changing, in 2000, I would have been against this. I hope I could have seen the future. But with the facts of the day, it was a 2-lane road all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's just where I differ on that opinion. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Johnson. So I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about it. We're going to talk a lot about this coming up, and we're going to have a workshop on it. But if anyone wants to chime in, you can.
My concern is that none of us can predict the future. And like, if we were here in 2000, we might have made a different decision then.
Right.
My concern is that we have a bird in the hand right now, okay? There's been studies to do the 3-lane road. We're on the long-term funding like we were 20 years ago in this commission. No one was here, but this commission pulled it from the work list. So you're off the list. We don't have the money to pay for this project. It's going to be millions. So my concern is that if we take another direction and we all agree that we're going to go for 4 lanes, and we somehow get a study and we get back on the list and we spend tens of thousands of dollars for another study, and we're slated for funding 40 years in the future, there's going to be a lot of commissioners up here in the next 40 years that might just say, I don't like that 4-lane thing because, now we have flying cars and we really don't need this anymore, so why are we going to waste all this money? And so I asked Mr. Forte, how do we make a decision and make sure that it doesn't change? And the referendum is the only way to do it. So there is a lot to talk about it. My concern is that we got close. We weren't close enough for a commission 20 years ago to wait. We've started the process again. We're in line. I don't know how long in the future we're in line, but we kind of have to resign to run. We got to pull that one off the table to put another one there. And do you want to risk not getting any funding in the future? You might be stuck with 2 lanes. So I don't know. It's not an easy solution.
And I think Lois Bolenbach, too, when we have this, I think we should have a workshop. And if Lois Bolenbach comes, who's the head of the TPO, could then tell us, hey, like you said, it's a resign to run, take this off, but also tell us where we're at with that current, because if we're 30 years down the line there for a turn lane, to me, if we're 2 years down the line from a turn lane, okay, let's talk about that. If we're 30 from just a turn lane, then I would take that gamble for the 4-lane all the way through. But I don't have those facts.
I know when those guys came and showed us all the reds and green lines and everything in the 20-year plan, none of those roads were in our city.
We weren't even in
Yeah,
it.
right.
We weren't in there, so-
we weren't even in the study. Yeah, it's ludicrous. Mr. Forte went off on her about that.
The only thing about it is when you drive west on LPGA, in any time a heavy traffic area, like after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're backed up all the way to Center Street and pretty soon be backed up all the way to the railroad track, maybe to US 1.
Yeah.
Cars are just sitting there just trying to get out. Something's got to change, what I mean? Maybe they need flying cars.
Flying cars.
Is that a motion?
And you know that project at the old middle school is going to grow. It's not going to be stagnant. I can see that much in the future. That's going to grow. But that's made a thing. I got to go to a TPO meeting tomorrow, and I'll listen to more of the talk about the road growth and no money to pay for it. But I don't have anything else. I'll yield to the commissioner on that.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
I think this is the first time in history our comments have taken twice as long as a meeting.
Yeah.
So,
And Penny's not
Has.
here.
Oh, good point.
You heard that, I hope.
She's listening.
just I have a couple things to report, and then I have an ask. So I'll give you my reports, and I'll give you the ask at the end. Jim Cameron talked about the legislative delegation meeting that I went to the other day. Just so you know, the Volusia League of Cities supports the Florida League of Cities initiatives, and there are 7. It has to do with property owner rights. We need to review our sales tax because right now the sales tax favors non-brick and mortar businesses in the state of Florida. Short-term rentals, we want Tallahassee to leave us alone and let the cities manage those on our own. Need to make sure we have transportation funding in the future, what we all just talked about, the infrastructure. Water needs assessment for the future. One big topic, and you touched on earlier, was we need funding for municipal cybersecurity. And then affordable housing is the last one from the Florida League. And the Sadowski Trust Fund was set aside just for that. It gets rated every year for special interest projects. And if we had all that funding for affordable housing, we'd all be a lot better off. And as the president of your Volusia League, I was able to add one more initiative that the Volusia League is going to support, and that's SB 138, which is sponsored by Senator Hudson, and HB 583, which deals with distilleries. And we're trying to get distilleries to have some of the same rights that the craft beer industry has. So, so we got some traction on that, hopefully. Speaking of advocacy, we have our Volusia League dinner next Thursday. Anybody going?
Yeah.
If you're planning on going and you want to take a trip to Tallahassee, a second trip with the Volusia League, there is a advocacy team meeting at 5 o'clock. So the meeting will start at 6. The advocacy team meeting will start at 5. You need the RSVP like tomorrow.
Is Kathy doing that class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're going to do that?
I
too?
will be there. I believe Commissioner Curry is going to be there also. I texted her to see if she.
I believe
said
she said she was interested in going.
Yeah, I think she said she RSVP before she left out.
Are multiple members from the same commission able to do it?
Yeah.
Because we won't.
You and I
speak
went to
city.
Tallahassee last year together.
Right, right.
So the other question, Commissioner and Mayor, while we're talking about that, is who's going to Tallahassee this next time around? Because Commissioner Curry did express interest in going to Tallahassee this next year. So I don't know how you make that decision.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd throw it out there while you're talking about it.
Well, I think we can all go.
I just
mean,
have to see what we
Stella's.
have in
We're looking at
budget.
Stella.
Yeah, Stella's like, what?
We have to see what we have in the budget for the hotel stay
Right.
and
Right.
make that decision.
Well, I'm going, and if need be, I mean, I could pay for it myself. But the problem for me is I don't know when I'm going to be able to go because of the baby.
And we don't have that's what will be determined at this meeting.
Okay, the date.
Try to pick a date.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't want to go when Volusia League goes. We want to have 2 presences, 2 times to see them.
Right.
So there's a suggestion, go at the same time. We want to have our own day.
It's good.
Some more hits. And then the last thing, I know I talked to Mr. Forte, and you guys probably all saw there was a survey about a Christmas party, and I know he's trying to work diligently and plan this all out. But years ago, the Christmas party was a huge event. We had 5 or 6 boards. The boards would all come because they're all volunteers.
Right.
They bring their wife. Everyone would have a nice time. It was kind of the board members get to know the employees, and it was, I don't know, it was like a Hallmark family Christmas. It was really nice. So we only have 3 boards in this city now. There's only 20 people that serve on these boards, and they're all volunteer positions. And I would like to suggest that when Mr. Forte gets all the details of this holiday party, that we invite those 10 people and their spouses to join us. What do we plan? $20 a head or something like that for a dinner, Joe? So,
I don't know, probably
15?
25.
I don't know. You're talking $400 or $500.
And
I
that's
just,
if they even come.
If they all come.
Half of them may come.
I just think it'd be a really good gesture to say thank you to these board members and recognize them and let them interact with us in a because we don't get to talk to them
Right.
very much. And I think it'd be something nice for us to do.
I'm in support of that. Is there any objection? Yeah, I'm in support of that. They do a lot volunteering, and I served on a board, you served on a board, and you don't get any recognition really, but that's not what you do it
Right.
for, but it's nice to be able to allow them to come to a Christmas party, I think, so. They do work for the city.
Okay.
I don't,
That's all,
yeah.
that's all I got. Thanks.
Great. All right, is there any other further business before us? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.